The little girl's hand was shaking so badly that the spoon slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the restaurant floor. Every conversation nearby seemed to stop at once. Warm golden lights glowed above the crowded dining hall, soft piano music floated through the air, and expensive perfume mixed with the smell of roasted steak and fresh bread, but none of it mattered anymore. The beautiful woman standing across the table stared at the twins with cold disappointment, then slowly pointed at them like they had ruined something precious. Their father stood frozen beside them, dressed in a simple white shirt that looked far too ordinary for a place like this. No one in that restaurant knew the truth. No one knew the quiet man holding those frightened little girls was one of the wealthiest CEOs in the city. And no one could have imagined that before the night ended, a single moment would completely destroy the walls he had spent years building around his heart. Before we continue, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories, if you believe every story hides a lesson someone desperately needs to hear. 3 years earlier, Ethan's world had collapsed inside a hospital room that smelled of medicine and rainwater. Machines beeped softly while his wife took her final breath after bringing their twin daughters into the world. In one brutal moment, he became both a grieving husband and a terrified father. He buried himself in work because work was easier than pain. His company grew into a billion-dollar empire while his heart quietly turned into stone. Newspapers called him brilliant, investors called him unstoppable, but at night, when the city lights reflected through the windows of his empty penthouse, he was just a lonely man eating frozen chicken nuggets for 2 little girls who still cried for their mother in their sleep. The twins became his entire world. Sophie was shy and sensitive, always hiding behind his arm in crowded places, while Lily carried a quiet sadness in her eyes far too mature for a 6-year-old. Ethan tried to give them everything money could buy, yet every bedtime story reminded him of what he could never replace. Nannies came and went because the girls never trusted them. Women entered his life because they loved his wealth, his power, or the headlines attached to his name. Some pretended to care about the children but treated them like accessories once the cameras disappeared. Ethan saw it every time. The fake smiles, the forced kindness, the impatience hidden behind expensive lipstick and polished manners. That was why he created the test. When he agreed to meet women again, he never revealed who he really was. No luxury cars, no designer watches, no bodyguards. He arrived as an average exhausted father trying to survive life with twins. Most dates ended quickly. Some women lost interest the moment they saw the children. Others acted sweet until the girls accidentally interrupted dinner or spilled juice on the tablecloth. Ethan watched everything carefully, carrying invisible heartbreak behind calm eyes. Then came Vanessa. She looked perfect the moment she entered the restaurant that evening. Elegant cream blouse, soft curled hair resting over one shoulder, diamond earrings sparkling beneath warm chandelier light. The hostess smiled differently around her, like beauty itself had walked into the room. Ethan noticed how several men turned to stare as she crossed the restaurant. For one dangerous second, he almost forgot why he was there. The twins noticed too. Lily tightened her grip around her stuffed rabbit while Sophie pressed closer against her father's side. Children could sense things adults ignored. At first, the evening seemed hopeful. Vanessa smiled politely at the girls and complimented their dresses. Ethan allowed himself to relax just enough to imagine something impossible, a future that did not feel empty. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe loneliness was finally ending. But then the waiter accidentally placed the wrong drink near Sophie, startling her. The little girl knocked over a glass of juice, sending orange liquid across the white tablecloth and onto Vanessa's handbag. The entire restaurant seemed to inhale at once. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly, not faded, not weakened, gone. Her face hardened with irritation so sharp it almost looked cruel. Sophie's lips trembled while Ethan grabbed napkins as quickly as possible, apologizing softly. But Vanessa wasn't listening anymore. She stared at the stain on her expensive purse like the child had committed a crime. Then she said the words the twins would never forget. She muttered that some people should learn how to control their children before bringing them into places they clearly couldn't afford. Ethan felt something inside him crack. The girls lowered their heads immediately, their tiny shoulders folding inward from shame. He had seen disappointment before. He had seen selfishness. But watching his daughters look at themselves like burdens reopened every wound he had spent years hiding. The restaurant became painfully quiet. Forks stopped moving. Nearby diners pretended not to watch. Vanessa continued speaking, unaware that every sentence was exposing who she truly was. She complained about Cheap family chaos, ruining the atmosphere, and hinted that Ethan probably struggled financially because he insisted on raising the twins alone. Her voice carried fake sympathy wrapped around judgment. Ethan stared at her silently. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. Tired of people measuring worth through money. Tired of women who loved appearances more than humanity. Tired of watching his daughters learn disappointment too early in life. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly waitress hurried over with a towel. Her uniform looked worn from years of work, and exhaustion rested beneath her gentle eyes. She knelt beside Sophie first instead of the tablecloth. She carefully wiped juice from the little girl's trembling hands and whispered something that finally made Sophie breathe again. Then she hugged Lily softly when she noticed tears rolling down her cheeks. The entire energy of the room shifted. The waitress smiled warmly and told the twins accidents happened every day. She even joked about dropping an entire tray of soup onto a customer during her first week decades earlier. Slowly, tiny nervous smiles returned to the girls' faces. Vanessa looked horrified that a waitress was interrupting her frustration. But Ethan couldn't stop watching the old woman. Because for the first time in years, someone had looked at his daughters before looking at the mess. The waitress quietly offered the girls free ice cream while the staff cleaned the table. She treated them like children instead of inconveniences. There was no performance in her kindness. No audience. No hidden motive. Ethan suddenly remembered something his late wife once told him during the hardest days of pregnancy. She had said that people reveal their true soul in moments when they gain nothing from being kind. And sitting there beneath the soft restaurant lights, Ethan realized the wealthiest person in the room wasn't wearing diamonds. Vanessa finally lost patience completely. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and coldly announced that she was wasting her evening. Before leaving, she looked directly at Ethan and said he should focus less on dating and more on fixing his chaotic life. Then she walked away. The sound of her heels faded into silence. The twins stared down at the table again, embarrassed and confused. Ethan felt his chest tighten painfully because no child should ever feel unwanted for being emotional, loud, or imperfect. He slowly knelt beside them and kissed both their foreheads. Then he did something no one expected. He asked the restaurant manager for the bill. The manager looked nervous. He explained quietly that several customers had recognized Ethan already. Word had spread through the kitchen that the billionaire CEO himself was dining in disguise. The color drained from Vanessa's face instantly. She had only reached the entrance when she turned around slowly and heard staff members suddenly addressing Ethan with respect. Phones appeared. Whispers exploded across the room. But Ethan never looked at her again. He simply paid for every table in the restaurant that night and thanked the elderly waitress personally. The woman looked stunned when the manager informed her that Ethan owned one of the largest technology companies in the country. But what broke Ethan emotionally wasn't the shock on Vanessa's face. It was the waitress quietly saying, "Those girls don't need a rich father tonight. They just needed someone to remind them they weren't the problem." For several seconds, Ethan could not speak. Because she was right. All these years he had been searching for the perfect woman while his daughters were secretly searching for safety. As the twins ate melting vanilla ice cream near the window, Ethan sat beside them feeling something unfamiliar return to his chest. Not happiness exactly, something softer, something warmer, hope, maybe. The rain outside had started falling gently across the city streets. Reflections of headlights shimmered across the glass while the girls leaned against him sleepily. For once, Ethan wasn't thinking about meetings, investors, or business deals waiting tomorrow morning. He was thinking about how close he had come to teaching his daughters the wrong definition of love. Before the ending, tell us in the comments, have you ever discovered someone's true character in a single moment? Weeks later, Ethan returned to the same restaurant with the twins. Not for another date. This time, they came carrying flowers. The elderly waitress burst into tears when the girls hugged her tightly. Ethan offered her something no customer had ever offered before, a fully paid retirement package through his company, along with enough financial support to finally rest after decades of work. The woman cried harder than the twins did. But the most beautiful moment came quietly. As Ethan prepared to leave, Sophie ran back and placed her tiny stuffed rabbit into the waitress's hands for keeping lonely nights away. The old woman held that toy against her chest like it was the most valuable gift she had ever received. And in that moment, Ethan understood something money could never teach him. The people who heal broken hearts rarely arrive wearing perfection. Sometimes they arrive tired, underpaid, forgotten by the world, yet somehow, they still choose kindness. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. And tell us below what moment in this story stayed with you the longest.